Well, welcome back after much hiatus for an entire semester. We come back during finals week to another episode of Spilling the Tea with
Greg
Greg
Barton.
and Laura Parrilla. So, what tea do we have today and what are we trying?
So we are drinking an English breakfast tea from Tivana.
Here's the package.
And so English breakfast teas are often an Assam tea. They're pretty much a straight black tea. They have a pretty strong flavor, like a morning cup of coffee for the tea drinker, in a way.
Yeah. So we got that from the Up and Atom. And the real thing that we're trying today, the exciting thing is I have made chamomile infused honey at home. So the way I made this is Colleen Babelia has bees, and she at Christmas time gave me this jar full of honey. And I took some of the honey out of the jar, put it in another jar, and took all of the dried chamomile flowers that I had saved from my garden from last season. And I put them in the honey, and I would just flip the jar over every day, and I kept it infusing for 2 weeks. And then I warmed it up in the microwave and strained it through a tea strainer in order to get all the flower pieces back out.
So a 2-week infusion, huh?
A 2 week long cold infusion.
There we go.
On raw local honey. And it's, organic, grown at home chamomile out of my garden.
Okay.
So I smell the chamomile in there right away.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I definitely smell it. Yep.
So if somebody hasn't ever had chamomile tea, just straight chamomile before, how would you describe the flavor? To me, I think chamomile already has some kind of honey sort of notes to it.
It has a sweetness to it, yeah.
And it also, I think, it's not exactly lemony, but it has sort of a brightness to it the way that lemon zest does.
It does, but I wouldn't call it lemon.
No, yeah, it's not lemony, but it's bright and zesty somehow.
It is, and I kind of feel like it has a sweetness, a little bit of sort of some kind of citrus almost type of thing going on. And then almost like the smell and the way the flavor, it reminds me of like a sweet summer wheat or something in a way. It's kind of this funny thing, but it's
very wheat.
Isn't it?
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yeah. That's the thing I couldn't put my finger on.
Yeah, I mean, that's
it.
I feel like that's the other piece of it, is it's like this. That's a pretty nice black tea just by itself, just to kind of I wanted to get an initial taste of the black tea before I.
Yeah. It's nice. It's very neutral. It's not bitter.
Yep. Yeah. Well, we steeped it for the 5 minutes it says on the bag. Exactly. Yeah. So I set a timer and you did a good job. Not getting honey. I'm always.
The key is you let it drain until it gets real skinny, and then you twist slowly. That's the secret, is the twisting.
I smell the chamomile in here now. Yeah. That's funny, but like right away, I put this up.
It made my tea a little more opaque.
Yeah.
I'm thinking that that's all of that pollen that was in those chamomile flowers.
Probably so. Because the honey doesn't do that much of that. It just have straight honey.
And the honey had sort of an opaque layer on the top as well. So I tried to stir that in before we put it in our tea. Oh, I really like that.
Yeah, it's good in the black tea.
It adds, if you like lemon in your tea, it adds a little bit of that brightness that lemon and honey would.
It definitely does.
We also have some croissants to try this on. So here's one for you and one for me.
This has your name on it. Oh, wait, they both do.
I guess they're both mine. We've got our croissants here. And then we'll give you some of the sweet, sweet drizzling action. You hold the croissant and I'll drizzle.
Thing.
Okay, you do like a lot or a little?
A fair amount. Oh, that looks great. Wow, look how good
You
you
see that
twirl. Look at how you twirl
twisting
that thing, and
action?
it just,
That
and
twisting
that's it.
action.
That takes care of it
Oh no.
for the test of the honey on the croissant.
Now I taste good.
I,
Well, bees are going to attack me when I go outside.
see, the twisting works for the spoon and maybe for the croissant, but you know,
Ooh,
you're still going to end up with some honey on you.
maybe you will.
Well, I did already on my hands there. See?
Uh-oh, now the bees are going to get you.
See?
Better make sure you wash your hand good before you go outside.
Boy, this is really good on these.
This is really good.
Mm.
I think this way might even be better than in the tea.
I agree.
But so what's going on with the chemistry remodel?
You know, the labs that are here have been in service for 30 years approximately.
Right.
And, you know, we had the bench tops sort of refinished at one point, but that doesn't really do anything with the lab. The hoods really, a number of the hoods are having some issues with the way they work. The way the setup is doesn't work that well. You know, right now we don't really have any TVs or even projection screens in the front. So we can't do any of that kind of stuff in the lab where,
and
you know,
cool because you have all of those nice new electronic benchtop accessories that the students are using.
we do.
What are those called?
We do. We have these Vernier, it's this Vernier equipment. So the Vernier equipment. And they, you know, we have actually these tablets from Vernier that run all the equipment. So they can be plugged into a computer and run, but the tablets are nice. They're mobile. They can use them right there, you know, at the bench. And what's nice about them is they can collect data on them and they can actually email the data to themselves or print out a graph or things like that. So that's what really is convenient about all of that is the ability to,
Right.
you know, to collect data that way and to automate some of the experiments and the data collection. And what happens is I feel like that gives us sometimes being able to automate it while the experiment itself might not take quite as long. It gives us time to really analyze the data and talk about what it means because sometimes
you'd lose some of that deeper understanding when the students are in the weeds, just bogged down with the manual labor of doing chemistry.
And then we run out of time and everybody's trying to wrap up.
Right.
And we don't really get to go over the stuff in the lab.
Yeah.
And I like to be able to do that because I actually think it's really helpful in terms of student understanding.
The labor of science is important for students to see, at least at some point, but it's not really the important part of what we expect them to walk away with as part of their education. So it makes sense to minimize the manual labor part when you can, so that you're getting to focus on these connections between the theory and what you're doing.
And in the modern laboratory, so many things are automated anyway.
Right, yeah.
And so learning the idea, you know, learning about the idea that, hey, you know, we can set these things up and they'll kind of run on their own. And then we need to analyze the data. The computer does some of the analysis for us, but we need to look at it, make sure the quality control is right, that the numbers we're getting out make sense, and how this fits in with, you know, what we're trying to figure out in the lab, you know. And so that's, to me, that's the important part. We don't do, you know, the numbers of runs that you do
in a commercial
lab. But yeah,
right.
So we, but it's it's one
readiness thing.
It is like being able to actually look and analyze the data.
Yeah.
Without having to be completely taught everything is a big deal for, when you get into a lab. If you can do that, that's what they really want to see. I mean, they know they're going to have to teach you to run the specific piece of equipment there
Right.
because it's all there. Every piece is different.
Right. Every piece in every lab will be different.
Right.
The calculations, the analysis,
right.
the number sense, the logic of don't put aqueous chemicals in oil-based chemicals and expect them to mix.
right.
The
right.
knowledge that, hey, this reaction is going to produce precipitate and you need to find a way to remove that. Or, those things are what they expect the students to know coming out of this, not, oh, I know how to open a valve and slowly drip things into a beaker and stir.
Speaking of precipitates, there's a chemistry saying it's, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the precipitate.
Yes. Yeah. So these labs, they've been in use since the building was built, and the keystone outside says 1994.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that would have been 30 years ago at some time last year, depending on.
Yeah, we're just slightly over 30 years now. Yeah.
So I think we're about due for some new equipment in the chemistry lab.
Yeah, the chemistry labs, and the other thing about some of what we're doing, the way the labs are designed kind of is an old style, and there are these risers in the middle of the lab benches that kind of block the view to some extent. There are several benches back there, and the instructor in the front, it might be hard to see some of the students and hard for them to see you in the front. So if you were trying to show them something, which I'd have to write it on the board now because we don't have any screens or anything, mm-hmm. right? And so the view is obstructed. The obstructed view is also a potential safety issue where I can't see everything in the lab all the time. And so that's the other thing I think that the remodel gives us is this added dimension of safety, the ability to view, an added dimension of, being able to interact more easily with the students from the front. I'm excited about the remodel. I mean, I think this is going to be a good thing. And like I say, I mean, some of the hoods we have in organic chemistry, all the students need to have their own hood space to work in.
Right. And we don't really have.
And we have enough hoods to do 14 in a lab in organic chemistry, which is still going to be that many for a single lab. Our other labs, we do up to 18.
Right.
But the interesting thing about that is some of the hoods, some of the connections of different things to the hoods don't, we have issues with some of them not working as well. And so we have, so we struggle with that a little bit. If we have a full lab, it can be almost problematic now. So this also will really expand the true functional capacity of the lab.
It'll also be nice to get some of that plumbing repaired as well, because your safety showers, oh my goodness, those rusty buckets leaking rusty water out. That doesn't seem very safe for a safety shower. 30-year-old plumbing full of God knows what.
I think it's going to do a lot for the lab. I think it's going to do and a lot for the students, and it'll be it's really going to be a great upgrade for the college.
I think it will be.
We're looking at some new equipment. I'm hopeful that we might be able to fit certain pieces of new equipment into the budgeting as well. So we're trying to do that. We're looking at the possibility of like a GC mass spec. And then the other thing we're looking at is these little, very small benchtop NMR. We teach the analysis of all of these things in organic chemistry, like NMR.
And if you don't
mass spec,
collecting it yourself and you're analyzing it, it doesn't mean as much. Yeah.
And we do let our students run all the machines here. supervised, of course, but they do run all the different analytical equipment. Where at some colleges, it's really run by the instructor. And so they never actually,
Yeah.
they never actually run the piece of equipment. So I think the hands-on ability to do that stuff is important as well.
Oh, yeah.
And, organic chemistry labs already, if something goes wrong during the lab,
You don't have
and they're
time
a
to
they're
fix
a
it.
long lab already.
Yeah.
It's a 4-hour lab.
Right.
And so, if something goes wrong during the lab, and then, if you have these lines for equipment, and if it doesn't work right, you have to make a new pellet. And so it really, what this does is free us up. And again, having this better equipment allows the students to do the work more efficiently and spend time learning what does it mean and exactly how to analyze it. And hey, we learned this theoretically.
Yeah.
Why am I seeing this on a real spectrum, right? And like, what are these anomalies I might see, or things that I wasn't expecting to see? And we can talk about things like that.
I think it's fantastic to explain to others what impact it makes when we're able to update the technology in the labs. Because if you're not a science teacher, a science student, a science inclined person, you see these lines on a budget and you don't really understand how impactful they are and what their purpose truly is.
Right.
And you
Right.
don't know what an impact this is going to make on the students and how
Yeah.
much nicer it's going to make things and how much better the learning experience truly will be.
So anyway, this has been an interesting discussion today. Thank you for joining us today, for spilling the tea.
I've been Laura Parilla,
And I've been Greg Barton.
and we'll see you next semester.